Hello, hello. I'm gonna wait a little bit, get some people on here. Just trying to get some things done this morning. I try to get some things done in the morning. It looks like I just keep pushing them back. I saw Ammon Bundy do a live stream, and I was inspired. I was like, heck yeah, she's awesome. She has a voice. She's the face. And I just want to tell you, Angie, if you're watching this, if you get an opportunity to watch this, thank you. You inspired me just by that one video, and I'm sure other people were inspired by that too. So I wanted to give thanks to you. There's some things that I wanted to discuss. I don't really want to discuss my case. I've been doing some research on that, looking up case law and getting some advice from a few people. And look, I understand the sovereign citizen thing. I'm going to do it my way. I thank you guys, those who have different beliefs and outlooks on law. If you have an opinion on it, that's great. But I cannot start putting liens on people without judgments. I'm trying my best to do it their way, in the statutory way. I think I could win. Sorry. I'm confident in this. I might be found guilty, but that does not matter. I'm going to stand on my principle. I'm standing on my principle because I believe I have the authority and the right granted to me by my Creator. That right is to be left alone. I have the right to be left alone. No one else can disturb my peace. As long as I'm not impeding on the rights of another person, I should be left alone. We have allowed the government to convince us that they grant us certain rights and certain privileges. They have made it in a way, they create this ticking time bomb scenario. They say if we don't allow them to take control of certain rights and certain responsibilities, something is going to happen. We have to allow them to rewrite laws and to destroy the Constitution just to get to the devil. But we don't realize what's to keep the devil from turning around and getting us. It's our job to protect the Constitution. It isn't the Constitution's job to protect us, because it only has the amount of force that we decide to give it. Now, if we let the judges and the Supreme Court make rulings and make decisions on their opinion, that puts the Constitution at risk, because you have to remember, the Supreme Court once ruled that slavery was pretty much okay. It was pretty much constitutional. What we need to remember is that we, the people, decide what's constitutional. We are a republic. In a republic, the form of government that we have makes sure that the individual's private property is protected. Your neighbors can't vote on things that they want to take. That's a democracy where the majority rules. That's not okay. We can vote on where to put the red light. We can vote where to put the stop sign. We can vote where to put the railroad. But we cannot vote on our neighbors. If I have an acre of land and I don't want to sell it, but somebody comes to me and says, "I want your land. Come on, sell it to me." I say, "No, it's been in my family for generations. It's only an acre. I have one small house on it, but it's mine. It was given to me by my family. My father worked for it. My grandfather worked for it. He built it. It's mine." They cannot go and take a vote on it and say, "Hey, well, you know what? We're going to take a vote and divide up your acre. That 1 acre that you have, we're going to divide it up. But Josh, you can take a vote too, because it's a democracy and we all have a voice." No, that's when the government or a sheriff steps in and says, "No, you can't touch private property. It's not yours. It's Joshua's property." And that's one thing we have detached ourselves. We need to get into a personal connection with the Constitution. I see people holding the Constitution in their pant pocket or in their shirt pocket and claiming, "Oh, well, I have this, so I know the Constitution." Ask them, okay, Article 4 of the Constitution, what does it grant us? Some can't even answer that. And yet, Lavoy Finicum talked about it, Ammon, Ryan, they all talked about it. It guarantees each state in the Union a Republican form of government. Now, that doesn't mean we have to go vote Trump or be a Trump supporter. I'm talking about Republican, a lowercase r. Now, what that does is, again, it guarantees that each individual has rights to their property, and their property is to be respected and left alone. Now, people ask, well, we have to have government determining what rights we can exercise and how much we can exercise them. Otherwise, chaos can happen. It's for the well-being of our neighbors. That's not true, guys. They're tricking you into believing that. Again, a right, by definition, is having the sovereign authority to do something because there is no one of higher authority to get permission from. A privilege is temporary authority granted by someone of higher authority. Now, I have a right to think, I have a right to dream, I have a right to express myself the way I want to. That right is inherent. It comes from me. Now, can the government come in and say, well, no, we have to be careful because you might offend somebody and start a riot? That's not my problem. That is not my problem. I have a right to speak. Do I have to ask permission to speak? No, because it is an inherent right. In the Constitution, it says the freedom of speech, or Congress shall pass no law abridging the freedom of speech. The most important word in that sentence is the, because it assumes that the right pre-exists the government, the Constitution. So the Constitution just clarifies that right you already have. And people forget that, well, it's necessary. It's necessary for the well-being of our neighbors. No, guys, again, the government creates a ticking time bomb scenario so that we can allow them to decide what's safe and how much rights we can use. No. A right, if you have a right to do something, there's no one that you should be getting permission from. I have a right to acquire property with my labor, with my time of life, with my right to contract. My right to contract is unlimited. No third party can come in and say, no, Josh, you cannot do that because you're unworthy of it. If the government wants to deprive you of something, they have to give you your due process of constitutional law. That's just natural law. They cannot just come in and seize something because they believe it's a danger to your neighbors. Now, again, whatever, if you have the Constitution, I'm urging you guys to just please pick it up and read it. Understand it. Read the journals of our founding fathers. And hey, Vic, I just saw your comment. Can you translate it in Spanish? There's actually constitutions you can order, and they are in Spanish. En español también. But anyways, before I get off track, guys, getting back to the importance of property. Property is very important. Our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, they all agreed that it's sacred. The law of property is sacred. It's as important as the law of God. And the reason for that is, I mean, like I said, all right derives from property. Now, I'm not saying all rights derive from land. What I'm saying is that all rights derive from property. If you have no property, you have no rights. Now, we all have a right to life. Where does that right to life come from? It comes from your body. Now, who owns your body? Some of you are like, Josh, of course, that's a stupid question. Of course I own my body. Well, there was a time when our country viewed some people, some men, as property. And I'm talking about slavery. Now, if somebody else owns your body, you're a slave. You don't have no rights. You can't make decisions on your own. You're constantly having to ask permission. That's one thing we really have to return to and embrace that and become make the Constitution personal. It's not the Constitution. It's our Constitution, your Constitution. So anything your body produces, your thoughts, the wealth that your body accumulates belongs to you, and nobody has a right to come and take it and hand it out in your name. that's one thing. Or another thing is that we forget that we have an opportunity. We can go out and get things on our own. I was arguing with somebody, kind of like a debate. I went to school with her, and she said welfare was a way of offering an opportunity to people. Is that what we're in now? Some people view welfare as an opportunity. Where's the logic in that? I can't wrap my head around that, guys. But again, I don't want to make this video too long. I know people are out there that have a lot going on in their lives, and they don't want to hear me ramble on or look at my ugly face. But guys, I have a passion for liberty. I have a passion for the Constitution. It breaks my heart when I hear some people giving speeches about how much they love the Constitution, but in the same speech they want to tell people what language to speak, what they can say, what they can't say, what they can wear. That is hypocrisy. That should not be. You cannot say you are for the Constitution and then say, no, we're going to require everyone to speak English. How are you going to enforce that rule? Well, we can't allow the Quran. We can't allow Sharia law. If you really think Sharia law is a danger to us, and yet you haven't opened up the city ordinances or look at the codes, you're crazy. You're insane, because I have court orders that grant local law enforcement to enforce laws. Those laws that they're enforcing are not actually law. They're just codes and regulations that the courts make. We have to be careful with those things. The federal government cannot force our local sheriffs to enforce federal laws. Our local sheriffs cannot take immigration, for example, into their own hands. When your state became a state, when a state becomes a state, they let go of certain privileges. One of the privileges is immigration. Immigration is federal jurisdiction. Now, some people say, oh, well, the state like Arizona has a right to enforce their own federal immigration policies. Not true, not according to the Constitution, because the only ones who have authority over that is the federal government. Now, getting back to the jurisdiction thing, if we start allowing states to convert federal laws into crimes, that's a violation of the Constitution. They're violating their oath. It violates the contract that we have with the federal government. And unfortunately, yeah, guys, when we became states, we granted powers to the federal government. But there's still limitation on that. There's still limitations on them. But we have to try to remember that if we're going to talk about the Constitution, and if we're really going to try to really restore the Constitution, we can't we can't start limiting other people's speech. We can't start limiting other people's rights. Again, this is I know this is a confusing thing. This is some things that it's school. I blame it on school. The public education has really made the Constitution stale, and the history of our country very stale. They don't teach the true meaning of the Constitution and the true purpose. The purpose of it is to limit the government and allow the people to govern themselves. I mean, again, I have a right to free speech, not because it comes from government. It's an inherent right. How am I going to protect those rights? Other forms of property. My other forms of property right here. I will defend what I have. Especially because nobody else, it's no one else's responsibility. You have the full authority to use the Constitution. In Hale versus Hinkle, I've mentioned that case a few times. It's one of the judge's opinions on that says the individual may stand upon their constitutional right as a citizen. His right to contract is unlimited. Now, that shows those decisions were made according to the Constitution. And some people say, well, the Constitution is dead. The Constitution doesn't exist. Yeah, you're right. It is dead because we allowed it to die. The minute when they start making foolish rules like at the courthouse to show ID or to get concealed weapons permits, that's when we allow the Constitution to corrode. The Constitution is dead. The Constitution does not have any more law or any more rule or any more force because we allowed it. I mean, we're allowing our officers to do more. If you really care about officers, if you really care about backing them up, tell your lawmakers to stop making them enforce unconstitutional rules, because the more negative contact they have with people, the more bad things that can happen. I mean, I've heard people talking about how Donald Trump wants to bring back the stop and identify, or the stop and frisk law that they had in New York. Look, I voted for Trump, but I'm not going to allow somebody to come and search me just because they think I might be breaking the law. I don't care what badge or what costume you are wearing. I'm not going to consent. I will not comply. That's the spirit of resistance. And I don't want to use that. I don't want that to ever come to that day. But we all have to embrace that. We all have to live like our founding fathers did. Our founding fathers didn't want us to be subjects. They want us to be free people. Now, in order to protect that right, you have to know and understand the Constitution. If you start allowing the government to determine what's constitutional and what isn't, they're going to pass laws right under your nose, and then you will really see tyranny. And that is what we're getting to. The whole purpose, like back to immigration, people always say, well, if they're not born here, they have no rights. No, that is wrong. If you look at the Constitution, when it talks about due process, for example, it says the accused, the right of the accused, the person, the accused. It uses words as accused, like accused and persons. It doesn't say American citizen, because at the time when the document was written, they didn't consider Africans or Indians as Americans, but they still wanted jurisdiction over them. So even if a slave or a Native American was accused of a crime, they still had due process of law. They still had a right to confront their accusers. They had a right to examine the evidence. They had a right to have 12 people from their community listen to the case, and the people from the community decide whether they're guilty or not. Not a judge, because obviously the judge will rule in the city attorney or the district attorney's favor. So it was supposed to be that way. But now we've allowed these courts to create what's called bench trials. Bench trials is where the judge plays the judge, jury, and executioner, pretty much. They're trying to avoid jury nullification. Now, if a judge can just get up on the stand and hear your case and file their nails as they're listening and be like, oh, okay, you're done? All right, guilty, you owe this much, or go to jail. That's not the way the system is supposed to work. That's obviously a conflict of interest. The thing we have to start doing is go to the courthouses and start demanding these changes. I was refused entry to the courthouse because of my non-political common law ID, which I had notarized, sent to Carson City for an authentication of notary signature. They sent it back to me. I was using that as my ID, but the federal courthouse doesn't want to accept that. Now, it's not the ID issue, it's just the fact that they're requiring people to present ID to access a public building that was put there for the people, and it's by the people. We need to start holding the people in office accountable. Now, again, back to rights and privileges. We granted them privileges. Now, if we grant someone a privilege, we can revoke that privilege at any time. Small example, if I have an acre of land, I can go walk up and down across my land all I want. Now, if my neighbor next to me has an acre, and I want to get to a store to maybe buy a cigar or some cigarettes or a beer, and I have to walk, instead of going around, I ask my neighbor permission to cross his land so I can get to the store. He can grant that. He can grant me that. Why? Because he's the property owner. He owns it. He can grant a privilege. He can grant authority over that, temporary authority. Now, if my neighbor allows me to go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday across his land to get to the store, that is fine. But say Thursday he wakes up in a bad mood and says, you know what, I don't want you crossing my land anymore, Josh. He doesn't have to have a good enough reason. He just has to have a reason. He can revoke that privilege. Why? Because he's the property owner. Now, again, that's the way we have to start thinking. If we granted these people in office authority, their authority derives from the consent of the governed, we can take that power back. Ronald Reagan, in his inauguration, said the states form the federal government. How do they form the federal government? Because we grant them power. Now, shouldn't we have the power to take it back, the power that we gave them? That's the spirit our founding fathers wanted us to have. Now, the Constitution is a political trust, and our founding fathers were very, very smart when they wrote it, because they wanted everyone in office to raise their right hand and say that oath, and swear to uphold and defend the Constitution. As soon as they raise their right hand, they are now in a political trust, in a bond. Now, who's the beneficiary of that trust? We are, we the people. And most law students, when they learn their first year of law, the courts have to have to rule in favor of the beneficiary almost every time. And the reason for that is, I mean, we're promised these things. We are granted these things, or we're not granted those things. It was left to us, and it's endowed by our Creator. Now, when it comes to like trusts, and as far as us being beneficiaries of that trust, do you really feel like you're getting the rights that you deserve? Ask yourself. Ask yourself. I mean, anytime you want to do something, it just seems like government is licensing every activity we want to engage in. It's almost impossible to seek the pursuit of happiness, to attain happiness. It's like a fleeting illusion to be pursued and never attained. These are the things we need to wake up to. We have to start behaving as our founding fathers did when they went to war with the Redcoats. They started shooting at Redcoats when the Redcoats started taking their rights and infringing on them. They were not only just infringing on them, they were taking money from them, taxing them. I mean, it was outrageous. They wanted the British wanted to disarm certain people. And the thing is, in order to take our power back, we have to start going to our city legislations and the city council meetings, the state, your state capital. Start going there. There's nothing wrong with our government fearing us. As a matter of fact, I hope they fear us. Thomas Jefferson said, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson, correct me if I'm wrong, that when the government when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty. Now, people get at me for repeating these things. People get at me for saying, from time to time, the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Let them take arms. I'm not the author of that speech. If you read what our founding fathers wrote, if you think I'm an extremist, you think I'm radical, go look up John Adams. Go look up Sam Adams. Go look up John Hancock. Read their speeches, and you really tell me if they were the type to just say, well, the Redcoats are just doing their job. We got to back them up. They're doing it for our good. They're doing it because, God gave power to the king. No, that is not true. When our founding fathers were gathering to start making changes for the better, for the true benefit of our patriot brothers and sisters, they were in the spirit of true sovereignty, of true property ownership. They wanted to be respected, not only as Englishmen, but as human beings. That no other human being is superior over another. I have the right to privacy. I have the right to do whatever I want with my body, which is my property. If you look at the Constitution in the first Bill of Rights, your First Amendment, where does that come from? Your body, which is your property. The Second Amendment, it's property. Property to help defend your other property. The third, the quartering of troops, to prevent the quartering of troops in homes. Back in the day, the troops used to be able to go knock on your door and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm going to stay here in your home. Our founding fathers did not like that. They did not like that at all. And again, what is that protecting? Your home. It's your property. Who's the person in charge? Who makes the rules to that property? You, the property owner. The Fourth Amendment, your right to be secure in your person, houses, papers, and effects. All my property, my person is my property. Your house is your property. Your papers, your property. Your cell phone, your books, all those, it's just more property. Your effects, they're more property. Now, if you really look into it and dig deep into the way the Constitution was written, it's in a way where it allows us to govern and make rules and make laws. It limits the government so in so many ways. It just limits them because they knew that government was like a fire. If you're out camping and you're trying to warm up your food or you're trying to keep warm, you have to keep control of your fire by slowly feeding it and keeping it from getting out of control. The Constitution was meant for that, to keep that fire in control. It can either be what is it, a fearful master or a dangerous servant. That's the spirit that our founding fathers had. They wrote these things down, especially because they saw and they knew history, like St. Thomas More. St. Thomas More was a priest in England who refused to say that the king was the head of the church. He said Jesus Christ is the head of the church, and I'm not going to denounce that way of thinking. I'm going to express myself. He was using his freedom of speech. Then he was arrested for high treason. He was taken to trial. They tried him, and when he was talking to the jury, he said, if he said, some people believe that the earth is flat. Some people believe that the earth is round. Now, if it were round, can the act of Parliament make it flat? If it was flat, can proclamation of king make it round? Now, of course, we all know neither of the two are true, but he was trying to appeal to their common sense. He was trying to say, does this man really have power? He's just a man. He's a king, but does he really have that much authority? Does Parliament have that much authority to make those type of changes to nature? We are the product of nature. We are natural human beings. No law can change that. Now, unfortunately, he was beheaded because he fought and stood on his principle. But our founding fathers saw men like that. Or they read history of things like that and said, well, damn, we better write it down. We don't want our descendants to see this type of tyranny. Let's write this stuff down so that they understand how important natural rights are. That the natural order of things cannot be disturbed by government just because they feel it's in the best interest of the people and for the security of the people. The government is not supposed to keep you safe. It is supposed to keep you free. And anytime somebody wants to come infringe on that, government has to step in and say, no, you cannot do that. That is not your property. Leave it alone. That's off limits. But yet, we have people just upset with, okay, like the flag burning thing. Pisses me off too. I don't like it. But if we start allowing the government to determine what and how much freedom of speech we can use, what about the next president who's going to be worse than Obama gets into office and says, well, you know what? I don't like the Second Amendment. I'm going to put restrictions on the Second Amendment. You have to be careful what you allow a president to do today, because a tyrant may go further and take away more rights. You have to be very careful on that. Now, you can tell them all, well, that's my Second Amendment right. They're going to come in and say, I don't care. I don't care what the Constitution says. So what? Again, I don't have rights because this document grants me rights. It does not grant me anything. Otherwise, then they can revoke those rights. I have rights because nobody's big and bad enough to come and take them from me. Now, if you want to take votes on my Second Amendment right, if you want to take a vote to take them away, you'll have to take a second vote. a second vote to decide which one of you will come and take my guns from me. And that is a vote I suggest you don't win. Why? Because I will resist. I preserve the spirit of resistance in my heart. I don't want it to come out. I don't want bloodshed. Of course not. But that's what was paid to make this document. That's what had to be done, guys. Now, some people I hear that, well, you know what, the Black Lives Matter. So what? The Black Lives Matter. Leave them alone. Is the Black Lives Matter movement passing laws limiting your free speech, limiting your gun rights? No. The government is convincing you who your enemy is so they can really enact laws that really limit your free speech. And they're doing these things in the dark, guys. They're having these meetings, creating laws that restrict us as human beings, not as Americans, as human beings. And the most important thing to remember is, you know what? Black Lives Matter is not our enemy. Black Lives Matter do not have the authority to come and take what's yours. The Black Lives Matter is just a movement, a political movement. Who's the one taking our rights away? Now, guys, I want you guys to really dig in and read the Constitution. I can go on for hours, but sometimes I think you guys get tired of me. I'm sorry. But I wish I wish more people had passion about the Constitution as I do. I know it's something that I'm willing to die for. If I ever meet John Adams or Sam Adams and other patriots in heaven, and they ask me, Joshua, what did you do to preserve freedom? I will tell them I tried my best to spread the knowledge. I tried my best to really bring awareness to the unconstitutional acts and the heinous acts by government. I try to bring awareness to the unlawful killing of Lavoy Finicum. I try to bring unity in the Patriot movement when we were trying to make our voices heard when they had our brothers in Nevada fighting for their lives. Hell, look at all the bullet holes in my body. I tried my best to preserve freedom. Guys, I'm not suicidal. I'm not homicidal. I don't want to hurt anyone. I really want liberty. The rules we should just follow is don't steal from me, don't hurt me, and I won't shoot you. That's what our country was founded on. Now we have all these movements about what hurts their feelings. You can't say anything. If I call somebody ugly, did I overstep my boundary to free speech? No. It may have hurt their feelings, and yeah, it's not a nice thing to say to somebody, but did I abuse my free speech? No. If I burn a flag, if I burn this flag behind me, did that hurt someone's feelings? Possibly. But again, it's my property. I bought it. I can do what I want with it. Now we're going to start allowing lawmakers to pass laws based on feelings. We're going to start limiting free speech based on what offends you. You want to take God out of school and leave government in when government has proven over time that anything they get involved with just goes bad? Why don't we get government out of school first and then go from there? Because they're the problem. Why is it that people still call us a democracy and refuse to recognize a republic? Nowhere in the Constitution does it say we have a democracy. Our founding fathers loathed a democracy. They knew that in a democracy, the majority rules. And that's dangerous. Because then, like here in Nevada, we have certain things that go up for votes, like my right to bear arms. We actually have patriots or so-called patriots here that fall for that and say, well, we need to go out and convince people that guns are okay. Really? Really? Do you really think that's going to work? That's not going to work, guys. We need to go and talk to the people who are putting that on the table in the first place. We need to start going, and I don't care if you want to go open carry outside of a government building, as long as you don't go on their property. Go in circles, walk up and down public property, and if the police approach you, be humble, be principled, explain what you're doing. But we have to start gathering outside these places that allow private property to be voted on. I don't care if it's my rifle or my magazine. You cannot vote on either. They're my property. Keep your hands off of it. I don't care what the Supreme Court says about how much of the Second Amendment I can use. If you think that the Supreme Court, their interpretation of the Constitution or the Second Amendment matters, how about this? You come and you stand in front of my door when the government comes and starts to take firearms. Then you'll see that it's my interpretation of the Second Amendment you should be worried about. Not the U.S. Supreme Court. Mine. Now, I hope I don't sound like an extremist, but I just want to let you guys know I preserve the spirit of resistance and I cherish my property. You may think that all my ideologies are based on materialistic things. No, they're not. It's just my body acquired property, my body built property, and it should be left alone. Again, all rights derive from property. If you have no property, you have no rights. Now we're getting into this era where we have an ideological war going on. Oh no, we need this because it's for the benefit of all our neighbors. We need to start taking away rights. Look at the Prohibition era. Really look into that. Prohibition didn't work. It failed. Failed pretty bad. And the government saw that, you know what, there's really nothing we can do. Why don't we try to encourage? That's what we should be doing. We should encourage our neighbors to do good. Now, you own your own body. Is smoking good for you? No, it isn't. I wouldn't encourage you to smoke, but it's your property. Do what you want with your property. If I want to put tattoos on me, on my skin, it's my body. I can do whatever I want with it. If I want to put chemicals into my body in the privacy of my own home, I can do that. It's my property. It's sad that we're allowing the government to legislate morality. We're allowing them to tell others how to live and how they should live their life. That isn't good to me. That isn't freedom to me. When a majority can rule and say, Joshua, you can't do that. You can't go to a bar. You can't drink. It's evil. According to my book, it's evil. No, I don't think so. You're not going to tell me how to live. I live free. And the only limitation on our rights is the equal protection of other rights. As long as I'm not damaging property by exercising my rights, I should be left alone. As long as nobody else is affected by me exercising my free speech. If I go into a movie theater and there's no fire, and I yell, fire, and everybody runs out and there's people tripping over each other, breaking their arms, getting hurt, whatever the theater owner, whatever money the theater owner lost, I'm responsible for. I expressed a right, and whatever negative outcome comes from it is my responsibility. Now, if there's really a fire, then I can go and yell, fire. Then people look at me as a hero. But again, people always use that excuse that, well, what if you use too much free speech and you get someone hurt? No, you got to get that thinking out of your head. The Black Lives Matter, oh, we should start limiting them. I heard Donald Trump doesn't want certain reporters to say things like their sources, that they have to prove or say who their source is. And now we're allowing him to determine what free speech or what we can say, what the reporters can say. If you're allowing Donald Trump, and look, again, I voted for him, but I know he's not a god. At least I have the sense to know that he's not a god. I don't want him doing anything for me. But you know what? He's starting to restrict and limit the free speech. Come on, guys, wake up And again, I voted for Obama his first term. Yeah, I voted for Obama. Get that, your boy. But I can admit that. I can admit that and say I made a mistake. I made a mistake. But you know what? Now I realize that a president isn't supposed to do anything for us. Let's ask Donald Trump to go and just play golf. Stay on the golf course. Let us, we the people, handle this. Because we have it from here. We can do it. My whole life was just trying to figure out, man, well, what is right? What should I do? What should I be? I wanted to be a Christian. I wanted to be a Muslim. I wanted to be a Buddhist. I wanted to be a Rastafarian. I wanted all these things, but really, until recently, I had to wake up and realize what I already am. Just that alone just opened my eyes and understanding where my rights come from. We are extraordinary human beings. You are all extraordinary human beings. Stop trying to fight and decide which side of the fence to be on. Be what you are. Be who you are. People ask me, well, Josh, you're Chicano, you're Mexican American. I mean, shouldn't you be on the Mexican side? Some people say, well, Josh, you grew up on an Air Force base. You come from a family with a lot of military background. You should be more patriotic, more American. No, you know what? I'm on God's side. The one who allowed me to come from both sides. The one who allowed me to have the beautiful cultures of both. That's what's important. Be on God's side. Be on the side of the person who created you, who truly granted you rights. Don't divide yourself by politics. Well, they're not Americans, so they don't deserve the rights. No. You cannot say who has rights to due process and who doesn't. We're all equal. The main thing to keep alive is the principle of law. And those of you who think that a lawyer are just evil, and yeah, I know there's some crooked lawyers out there. I know there's lazy lawyers. I think there's more lazy lawyers than there are bad lawyers. Now, what an attorney does is a defense attorney. They defend the principle of law. They defend law, not the individual, not the person up there for a heinous crime. Now, a prosecutor prosecutes law. Doesn't mean anything. That's what they're supposed to do. But whenever they see unconstitutional laws being enforced, they have a duty to stand up and say something. They have an obligation, not just as Americans, but as human beings, to make sure that one race or one faction is not superior over another. That whatever that person has, whatever that person acquired through their labor, through the time of their life, is theirs and off limits. Now, I don't care if it's a day in jail, 6 months in jail, it doesn't matter. The government damn sure better prove that 1 second in jail is worthy. Now, whenever you go to jail or whenever you go to trial, whenever you're fighting a case, remember, that's another dispute over property. They're trying to put you in jail for being accused of damaging property or violating the rights of another person. Now, time of life, just because we can't see it in a physical form, doesn't mean it does not exist. It does exist. My time of life comes from my body, which is my property. So if the government wants to put me in a jail cell, they have to prove that I'm a danger to the public to be in there, that I'm supposed to be in there. We have to start recognizing that and stop saying, well, it was only a day, it was only 2 days in jail. No, we can't think like that. No human being should be put in a cage for not presenting ID, for jaywalking, for spitting on the sidewalk. And it's horrible when I hear some of you out there applaud what that officer did in Anaheim. It's horrible. I mean, if that was my kid probably would have done the same and kept swinging and kept telling him, get off of me, because I told my son, If somebody tries to grab you and take you, you kick and you scratch and you bite the best you can. That person, that man, I'm not even going to call him an officer. He didn't show his badge. He didn't show anything. He expects all of us to assume and believe what he says. Where's the accountability? Why aren't we holding these people accountable for what they do? Why do we put so much trust in police officers? Just because they put on that badge and that gun, and Hollywood makes them out to be some heroes without capes? What happened to the days when police used to show up because they were called? Now they go around looking for things. Now remember, when they go to the academy, the 3 main things they learn is to find, arrest, and convict. They're not your friend. They may seem like your friend because they want you to talk more so you can lead yourself into an arrest. That's what they're trying to do. I posted the orders that the federal courthouse, I guess, is trying to enforce. The federal courthouse expects Metro to enforce laws. Again, guys, we got to start challenging jurisdiction here. Who has authority to enforce laws, state laws, federal laws, things like that? We can't allow just officers, anybody with a badge, to just start going out and say, hey, you know what? I think you got a holster. Show me your ID. Wait a minute. No, you can't just walk up to me. This isn't Germany, Nazi Germany. This isn't South Africa. You can't just come and ask a human being to show me the papers. Show me your papers. Show me your papers. No. Well, I'll take you to jail. Take me to jail. Take me to jail. You can do whatever you want to me, but you know what? I'm not going to comply. All right, guys, I know, damn, I went on and on and on, but remember, I love you guys. Remember why we do this: God, country, and family. Love y'all.